In specific, when we come to industrial policies, the first IPR after independence was announced on 6th April 1948, which is known as IPR 1948. IPR 1948 had to be announced as soon as we got independence. So when did we get independence? 1947. So within 1 year, in the year 1948 itself, IPR had to be announced to clear the doubt in the minds of the private enterprises and foreign investors. Since India became just independent, entrepreneurs do not know what would be the attitude of the government with regard to taking over of industrial units or expansion of industries. So to clear the doubts in the minds of private enterprises, the first industrial policy of independent India was announced in the form of IPR 1948. The most striking feature of IPR 1948 is the classification of industries into 4 types. So industries in this policy were classified into 4 types. What are they? First category, exclusive state monopolies. So industries like, very important industries like arms and ammunition, atomic energy and rail transport. These were included under exclusive state monopolies. These units will be set up only by the central government. Hence, they are state monopolies. Then, second category, state monopoly of new units. So, new units in this category, which included very important industries like iron and steel, aircraft manufacture, shipbuilding, and so on, would be set up henceforth, that is after 1948, will be set up by the central government. So, these would be state monopoly in future. Then, third category of industries, state regulation and control. These units are subject to state regulation and control. So, what are they? Cement, fertilizers, non-ferrous metals and others. So, government would have a regulation and control on these units. Then the last, fourth category was called as unregulated private enterprise. The sector left to the unregulated private enterprise. This category of industries would be left to the initiative of private enterprise. So, industries were classified into 4 types. Exclusive state monopoly of new units, industries subject to regulation and control by the government, and industries left to free enterprise of the private sector. So, politically, enactment of Constitution came into existence. Economically, the 5-year plans were started. Socially, the goal of Indian government has been set as socialistic pattern of society. So, keeping in view these major changes, Government of India had to announce IPR 1956. So, what are the main features of IPR 1956? The first and foremost striking feature of IPR 1956 is the classification of industries simply into 3 schedules. One, Schedule A. Second, Schedule B. And third, Schedule C. 17 industries were included in Schedule A. 17 industries were included in Schedule A. These will be under the control of the government. Then Schedule B industries in future will be set up by the government. But government expects private entrepreneurs to supplement the efforts of the government. Then Schedule C. It was freely left to the private enterprise. So industries were classified into Schedule A, 17 industries, Schedule B, 12 industries, Schedule C, freedom of private enterprise. Then we have to know second feature. Second feature concentrated on assistance to private sector. Keeping in view the importance of private sector, assistance will be provided to this sector by setting up infrastructural facilities and financial institutions required for the development of private sector will be taken care. Then cottage and small scale industries. Keeping in view their importance in generation of employment and mobilization of savings, these would be encouraged by providing tax concessions and subsidies. So, for development of cottage industry, subsidies would be provided in the cost of production. Government will bear some amount and tax concession, directly tax concessions would be provided. Then, balanced industrial growth. For spreading the industries throughout the country without regional disparities, government would give priority to setting up of public sector units in backward areas. So, priority will be given to set up public sector units in backward areas. In addition to that, private sector will be encouraged to set up industries in backward areas by giving them tax concessions and other incentives. So, both public sector and private sector will expand in backward areas. Then, fifth is role of foreign capital. So, government welcomes the foreign capital investments in India. Foreign capital is welcome, but it made it very clear that the management of industrial units should be only in the hands of Indians. So, foreign investment may be there, but management should be in the Indian hands. So, next we have development of managerial and technical skills. They are very, very important for industrial development. So, government would set up various training institutions to promote managerial and technical skills. Then, lastly, another striking feature is incentives to labor. Labor is considered as a part and parcel of development of industries. Their role is recognized. Hence, they would be provided with fair treatment and better working conditions. Thus, IPR 1956 is appreciated for flexible classification of industries, but at the same time mentioning that most of the units will be taken over by public sector was criticized by many because this may reduce the industrial development in our country. Now, we shall discuss about a very, very important industrial policy, both in terms of Indian economy as well as public examination point of view. It is a 10 mark essay. So IPR 1991 is generally covered under 10 marks essay, and the probability of getting IPR for 1991, the probability of getting IPR 1991 in the public examination is quite possible. So we will learn in detail about IPR 1991. IPR 1991 is a sensational industrial policy. It was introduced in the form of LPG model. So what do we mean by LPG model? LPG, L stands for liberalization. P stands for privatization. And G stands for globalization. So an attempt was made through IPR 1991 to revolutionize the Indian economy. That is why later this policy or development after this is described as LPG model of development. What were the main objectives which led to the introduction of IPR 1991? The most important is creation of employment and improving international competition. So, to make Indian industry stand in the world as a competitive economy and to generate more employment, because Indian economy could not register higher employment prior to 1991. Public sector failed in creating more employment opportunities. So in the light of this, what are the main features of IPR 1991? First and foremost feature is abolition of industrial licensing. So in IPR 1991, the industries requiring licenses were limited to 6 strategic industries, and example of such strategic industries are alcohol, hazardous chemicals, and so on. So except for these 6 industries, industrial units need not obtain license to set up their units or expand them. Then second is role of public sector diluted. That means, I have already told you in the introduction that public sector miserably failed in its performance. So, second feature is very important. Role of public sector diluted. The role of public sector was reduced. First, the number of companies covered under exclusive monopoly of the state, like arms and ammunition, were cut down to 3 industries. And in addition, the equity of the strategic industry can come down to lower than 26% of the equity. So, government wants to reduce the equity of the public sector. And also, some other points regarding public sector included revival of viable public sector units. So what is revival of public sector units? If there is a possibility to make profits in a unit, viable public sector unit, they will be revived. If they cannot be revived, they will be closed. But protection of workers will take place. So, role of public sector was reduced from IPR 1991. Then MRTP Act. It stands for Monopolistic and Restrictive Trade Practices Act. This was amended to raise the limits of the enterprises' assets. So, the asset limit of the enterprises was raised to a higher level through MRTP Act. And in the same point, government mentioned that sick units, the units which are undergoing losses, would be referred to the BIFR. So, what is BIFR? Board for Industrial and Financial Reconstruction. Then we have pre-entry to foreign investments and technology. So, the foreign investment is encouraged. Hence, FDI, that is foreign direct investments, are encouraged by the government, and without restrictions, foreign technology and technical experts can be brought to help Indian industry. Then, liberalized industrial locations. So, while setting up the industrial units, the non-strategic industries, if they are not covered under strategic industries, they can be set up in any area of lower than 1 million population. Lower than 1 million population, they can be set up in any area of the country. So, industrial location has become very easy if they do not fall under strategic industry. The units can be located in any part of the country provided the population of that area is below 1 million. Then we have removal of mandatory convertibility clause. Removal of mandatory convertibility clause. Before the introduction of IPR 1991, financial institutions used to convert a part of their loans into equity of the company. That means almost financial institutions were participating in the equity of the companies, thereby involving into running of private enterprises. But now this clause was removed. The financial institutions do not participate or have equity based on loans in the company. So, the companies are not restricted with the presence of financial institutions henceforth. So, IPR 1991 has very, very important features. So, industrial licensing was abolished except for 6 industries. And we have to remember, slowly or gradually, the government is reducing the number from 18 to at present 6 in subsequent years. I think by 1999, the industries falling under strategic industries came down to 6. Then role of public sector was reduced. MRTP Act was enhanced and the limits of companies' assets was raised. Foreign direct investments were allowed. Not only investments, but also technology and technical experts can freely enter into our economy. Then, industrial location was liberalized. Industrial units, especially non-strategic industries, can be located anywhere if the population is below 1 million, and to give freedom to the private enterprises, financial institutions, clause of mandatory equity through the loans was dropped. So, the IPR 1991 gave place for free trade and enterprise in our economy. Later now, we will discuss about the critical evaluation of IPR 1991. That means what is the positive impact and what is the negative impact of IPR 1991. So now, the critical analysis of IPR 1991. That is, the impact of IPR on industrial sector and on Indian economy. So the IPR had both positive and also negative impact. So first we will observe what is the positive impact. Means what are the advantages we got after implementing IPR 1991. So what are the positive aspects of IPR 1991? First, innovations and improvement in design. Industrial enterprises are going for research and development, R&D, and introducing different types of innovations. Innovations means new methods, new products, and so on. They are introducing innovations and also improvement in design. So designs, making of the goods, the method in which we make the goods is getting improvised. So innovation and improvement in designs is taking place due to research and development. Then next aspect, very important, quality. So quality of the product is given importance at every step by the entrepreneurs now. So right from buying of raw materials, quality in checking the raw materials to selling the product while marketing, right from buying of raw materials to packing the products and selling them. At every step, quality is taken care. So now we have ISO 9001 certification and all. That's a proof to the quality maintenance. Then development of infrastructure. So infrastructural facilities like banks, transport, communication are very well developing in our country, which includes the development of IT sector also. Then employment in MNCs. So MNC, multinational companies. So sophisticated jobs, that is wherever technicality is required, such jobs are getting created by MNC. So people who are professional, technically qualified are able to get good jobs in MNC. Then increase in standard of living of the people. So there is a very high standard of living of the people now after IPR 1991 because various varieties of goods are being imported. We are able to enjoy different varieties of goods like different refrigerators, different TVs and so on with the help of IPR 1991. Hence, the standard of living of the people, the amount of goods enjoyed by the people is increasing. So, this is all about the positive aspect of IPR 1991. At the same time, we also have some negative effects of IPR 1991. In other words, the disadvantages, demerits, or negative impact. So, what is the negative impact? First, tough competition to domestic industries. So, the domestic industries means home industries, the industries belonging to our own country are facing stiff competition from international companies. So, the companies of other countries will have high standards, high quality. So, Indian industries, domestic industries are facing tough competition in withstanding such industries. Then, opposition from workers. So, IPR 1991 led to closure of public sector units, then reduction in public sector activities and so on. So there is opposition from workers because they fear that their salaries will be reduced, their jobs will be removed. So there is opposition from workers. Then general unemployment. Employment in specific sectors, MNCs is increasing, but unemployment in general, like to the unskilled workers and others, is on the increase. Then, indiscriminate use of natural resources by multinational companies, MNCs. So, in order to make profit, the multinational companies which are present in India are utilizing our natural resources indiscriminately. So, to suit their interests, they are just utilizing the natural resources. Then, production of goods without following government guidelines. That is, there is distortion in production of goods. So, whatever government expected, the production of goods is not taking place in those lines. The goods which are required by the rich, like luxury goods, are produced which was not expected by the government. So, it is leading to production of goods which were not expected by the government. That means they are going for production without following government guidelines. Thus, IPR 1991 had both positive as well as negative impact, but we have to remember that 1991 paved a great way for rapid industrial progress as well as made Indian economy a competitive economy in the world.